Okay, here we are again with our trance arrangement from the previous DVD. We closed the previous DVD by completing basically the pre-mix. For those who haven't seen the previous DVD, all this consisted of was applying the SPL Transient Designer to a lot of the timbres to finish designing them and generally move them around the mix by adjusting the attack of them. And we also applied some very basic EQ, and that was just to remove any frequencies that I felt didn't particularly contribute to the timbre on each channel. Mostly noise, removing a bit of noise that was on each channel and just cleaning it up really. Once we'd done that, what we did is we bounced them all down again, and that's basically give us what we can see here now. Now, for those who do own the previous DVD on creating trance music, you'll notice that I have bounced down the kick top and kick bottom both into one here. The reason for that is the kick is sounding right to me, and we've no need to keep them separate anymore. I certainly wouldn't have the intention of applying EQ individually to just two parts of a kick, and by bouncing them down as one, I can generally keep control with just one fader here rather than having to play with two. More importantly though, you may notice that a few additional effects have appeared on the mixer, as you can see here from the last session. Now, as I mentioned, after applying the transient designer and the EQ to the channels, what we did is we bounced down these tracks and re-imported them back into the sequencer, and then we basically took a break from this mix for a couple of days. Now, when we came back to it and listened to it with a fresher perspective, we felt that it'd benefit from a few small additions, just basically a few effects here and a little bit of automation here and there. Now, I should stress that we haven't done anything major, as you'll hear in a minute when I play these back. The timbres are still the same and so forth. All we've simply done is added a bit of echo bar, a bit of compression. We've got a little bit of automation, as you can see there. It just something to make the mix a bit more lively to our ears after we had this break. And actually, that's an important aspect that I'm going to emphasise here. During some courses I've held in the past, I've noticed that once the practicing engineer tends to reach this stage where they're ready to mix, they seem too afraid to go back and touch anything. It's as though the frame of mind switches to the mix and that's it. Music and arrangement are a totally separate entity from mixing, and once you reach that mixing stage, that's it. You don't turn back. Well, for want of a better word, that's a lot of bollocks. I mean, music, arrangement and mixing is all one and the same, and you have to treat it as such. Any engineer that's worth his salt isn't afraid to jump back to the arrangement halfway through a mix and change parts of it if needed. Basically, it's your job to make this track sound the very best it can. Therefore, at any time during this mix, you should feel free to jump back, change your part, and then come back to the mix and carry on. You need to remember that sometimes problems may only start to arise during the mixing stage, and you don't want to ruin your track by refusing to go back to an arrangement and change the problematic part just because you're in the middle of a mix. A typical example is, say, you're in the middle of a mix and you're struggling trying to fit all the instruments within a certain part of the mix. In pop music, that'd be the chorus, or in dance music, that'd be our lift, which is generally around here. Now, there's some frequency clashes in there that you just can't seem to clear up, and in cases like that, it's not unusual to jump into the arrangement and move the part that's clashing either earlier or later into the mix, or if required, even remove it altogether. What you need to do is you need to try and keep in mind that you should never have to shoehorn any timbre into a mix. It should just sit there, and if you start to feel that you're having to shoehorn a specific timbre into a mix by excessive EQ or excessive panning or volume, then take it away. Either move it earlier in the arrangement, move it later in the arrangement, or just remove it altogether. And on that same theme, don't be afraid to double up tracks if you need to. There may be parts of the mix that seem hollow, or the timbre doesn't quite seem right. In that case, don't be afraid to double track it, thicken it, or apply additional effects to it to make it fill the mix with that specific part. As I've said before, your job here is to make the mix sound right. So make it sound right by doing whatever you need to, and whether that's at the beginning of the mix, the middle of the mix, or even right at the very end of the mix, it's got to sound right. So don't be afraid to jump back and change things. Now, you've already witnessed us building the track from nothing, and you've seen how we use processors and effects. Plus, this DVD isn't really intended for absolute beginners, so I'm not going to run through the Echo Boy and the compression, what we've done here. I don't think there's any need, because they're basic effects and you should already know what they do. But what I am going to do, I'm going to play the track through as it is now to you before we start mixing it. Now, those who are on the previous DVD may be able to hear the small changes we made with some automation and the effects, and you'll be able to see them jump in as well as it plays back. And for those who don't own the previous DVD, you'll be able to have a listen to this mix before we actually start to mix it down. So we'll play this back now, and in the next session what we'll do is we'll look at how to set up the mixer and generally get started for approaching this trance mix.